Welcome to the podcast, Colts Nation 365. I'll be your host, Zach Boyd. This is episode number 2. Thanks, Colts Nation, for following along. We really appreciate your support. Today we'll be followed along by Sam Sinclair. He works for Roster Guys, Unwrapped Sports, and he also has his own podcast, Circle City Pod. Covers all things Pacers, all things Colts. How you doing today, Sam?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, man, absolutely. Hey, before we get into this, I promised the guys over at Twitter, Colts Nation 365, a keyword. That keyword's going to be at Sam Sinclair. Direct message me at Sam Sinclair to be entered for the 2 prizes. So, Sam, I guess we'll just jump right into this thing, man. What are your expectations for this season?
Well, you have to – you kind of have to think of it – I'm trying to think of the word. You kind of have to lower expectations now after the Angelic injury. But to go into the season, if Angelic is fully healthy, of course, I expect this team to win at least 10 games like they do every year with Angelic. But what I hope the team builds on from last year is they get a home playoff game and they win 11 to 12 games instead of 10 or 11 games. I want to see him get a home playoff game. And I know Irsay stressed that at his press conference after training camp. He talked about, the great Manning teams. They always had a lot of playoff games at home and in the RCA Dome and Lucas Oil Stadium, and how that's key for the Colts if they want to get back to the Super Bowl. And I think that's a big key if they want to get back to the Super Bowl, is they have to have home playoff games. Andrew Luck has only played in 2 home playoff games in his 8 playoff games in his career, which is insane. We need to get that number back up to, even numbers almost, or more home games than not. So that's just something I expect them to go around 11 to 12 wins. Just depends. If we're fighting for a number 1 or number 2 seed late in the year, the Jacksonville game could be a flip-flop. We could not be playing for anything in that game. We might just rest our starters, but who knows? I'd like to see at least 10, 11, 12 wins from this team this year and a couple home playoff games.
Yeah, I tend to agree, man. Just a quick little side note. What do you make of this injury, man? I mean, we've had kind of some past history issues with the Colts maybe not giving us all the information that we need. Do you look too much into it, or you think this is just being extra cautious because of what has happened in the past?
Listen to that. Originally, I kind of freaked out a little bit, but after listening to Andrew talk and listening to Frank talk, it almost sounds like how if you sit out for – what he sit out for 3 months or so without doing any physical activity. And then you go out there, and I know he only did 7-on-7 at the very most, and he only did individual drills in camp, but you're still putting your body in that rigorous NFL scheduling. And basically, the calf was probably not ready for that. He probably needed to he probably needed to lightly toss the football, lightly scramble around. He didn't need to come right into training camp and start running around, throwing the ball all over the place. I know he didn't throw every rep in practice the first couple of days, but I think it was just more of the fact that the calf, it might have been ready because it's been sitting out for 3 months, but it wasn't like, hey, Andrew, it wasn't like 50 snaps in a regular season game, running around trying to lose tacklers and throw the ball, because people don't realize how much you need in your legs to throw the ball accurately. So I think it's more of just, hey, it got re-aggravated. We need to, tone it down a little bit. Let's rest up for a week or 2. Preseason doesn't mean anything to Andrew Luck anymore. It's just how it is. Let's get him ready for Los Angeles Chargers week 1 and for the regular season.
Yeah, I think all Colts fans are kind of holding their breath, but I tend to agree with you on that one, Sam. That kind of leads into my next question. There's been a lot of hype about Andrew Luck, possible MVP, being an MVP candidate. What are your thoughts on that? Because he's not the most popular. He's never going to win a popularity contest in the NFL. He just does everything right. He's quiet. He's to himself. What are your thoughts on him possibly being MVP?
Well, he's going to have to fall in line with a lot of the other quarterbacks that have recently won MVP. You're talking like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning when he was with Denver and Indianapolis, and Patrick Mahomes recently. He's going to have to throw. He's going to easily have to exceed 45 passing touchdowns this year. He's going to have to throw probably darn near 50 passing touchdowns. And you look at a lot of the recent MVP winners, they were on winning teams. They were, first, second seed, or, one of the top seeds in their respective conferences. So you're going to have to see that Andrew Luck is not only producing high numbers and getting a lot of stats, but he's also going to have to win a lot of games. So you're thinking it's going to almost have to be along the line of Pat Mahomes, where it's going to have to be 50 touchdowns, 5,000 passing yards. The team's going to have to be like 12-4, 13-3, and being on number 1 or 2 seed. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility because I believe Luck finished third in MVP voting last year. It's just the fact that I don't think Luck's that type of guy to go out there and throw 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards because we're a much more complete team than that. We're not going to have to rely on him to do that. And even his career high in passing touchdowns, 40, and last year he had 39. So it's not like, Andrew's the type of person to throw 50 touchdowns. It would have to be like miraculous season, or the Colts are going to have to be losing like almost all their games by a lot for him to throw for 50 touchdowns.
Yeah, man. I tend to think that the league they get into this Star Wars thing, big yards, big touchdowns, big plays, flash. I don't know how much they value winning over that. What's your views on that? Do you think that winning takes precedent over the numbers, or if it's just more of a popularity contest? And, you mentioned Pat Mahomes. If you throw that 50 touchdowns, 5,000 yards, that's just moving forward. It's going to be the benchmark to win an MVP.
Yeah, well, it's somewhat a popularity contest. It's all about who's bringing in the most viewership and the most money for the NFL. And, of course, Pat Mahomes is basically the new shining toy of the NFL. Like, for the longest time, it was Peyton Manning. Everybody wanted to watch Peyton Manning. And Tom Brady dueled out, and Peyton Manning was arguably getting the better stats, while Brady was winning all the games and winning all his playoff games and getting the Super Bowls every year. So kind of have to look at it like that. You asked the question about the stats over the team wins. If you get the stats, especially for Mahomes, or if you're playing for a playoff contending team, if you throw 50 touchdowns, you're going to win. You're going to win at least 11 games. Like, it's just not out of the realm of possibility. It would be different if it was a quarterback that's not playing for a good team. Like if it was Derek Carr, for instance, like let's say they go 5-11, but he threw 50 touchdowns this year. He might not be in the MVP conversation because he didn't win a lot of games. So I think winning is the barometer. I think that's what, is expected from the quarterbacks if you want to be in the MVP talks. But you also have to have that crazy good statistical year. Like, you're going to have to be first in almost every quarterback category to be in the talks.
All right, Sam, let's just kind of switch gears a little bit. What do you think about Marlon Mack, the guy that Luck's going to be handing the football off to this year? Frank Reich's made it very clear he wants to be a top 5 running offense this year. What are your thoughts on Marlon Mack? What are your expectations, bud?
Well, last year he had 900 rush yards, and I want to say a little over 100 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns in 12 games, regular season games. I know he reached over 1,000 rushing yards if you include the postseason games. I think he's going to be around that 1,200 rush yard season. I think I'd like to see a little bit more of an increase in the pass offense. I don't think it's going to happen with Naheem Hines and a bunch of new receivers in town. But I'd like to see Mack, get to about 300 receiving yards. That would be a great possibility. I also think he could have around 11, 12, 13 touchdowns. And I think if he really wants to improve, he'd get into the Pro Bowl. And I don't think it's out of a realm of possibility, especially with the lack of star power that there is at running back in the AFC. If you get 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns or so just in the run game, you should be getting Pro Bowl nod votes. But I also think that Mack, we look at the stats and we say, oh, he had 900 yards and 9 touchdowns in 12 games. But I think a lot of people fail to realize he had a bunch of games, especially late in the year, where he was up over 125 yards or so. And beginning of the year, middle of the year, he was only having 12 games where he was around under 75 yards. So I think he needs to be more consistent. I think he needs to be around 75 to 95 rush yards per game. Of course, having those couple games of 125 yards or more would help. But just being more consistent, I think the Colts also got away from the run game or a little bit earlier in some games. I think to on the road against Jacksonville, a couple late in the year, they kind of got away from the run game where, that game was in hand. They could have ran the ball a lot more and probably would have won that game. Just staying with the run game and staying with the game plan. And if Frank Wright wants to be a top 5 rushing offense, I don't think it's out. I don't think it's, out of play for the Colts, but I think he expects top 5, but I think he really wants the team just to be in the top 10, just to, have that just have other teams' defenses worried. The Colts could actually run here, so we're going to have to stay on our base defense and not load up against the pass. So that's just what I think about Marlon Mack.
Cool, man. Is Marlon Mack ever going to play 16 games?
I doubt it. He just seems like the type of guy that at least miss a game or two. And I even think we'll go a little bit off track, but I don't even think Justin Houston will play all 16 games this year.
Yeah, that's another guy that kind of, you got high hopes for him, but he just has such a track record of not being able to play all games. Hopefully we can kind of do some of that, time management with Justin Houston and kind of really use him for those big passing downs and maybe take some of those snaps away from him and just use him when we really need him to kind of close football games. Moving on, man. You got one player on each side of the football that you're really excited to see this year?
On offense, and it wasn't someone I was particularly excited to see until I got to see him in training camp the few days I've been down there. I'm really, really excited to see Devin Funchess in the one-on-one drills. I know he beat Desir twice on Sunday on some really impressive moves. Inside the 5, he had like a quick slant where he kicked up a lot of dirt, and he got at least 3 yards off of Desir on the slant route. I thought that was really impressive with how quick his movement was in and out of the break to get that much separation at 6'4", 230. And then he also showed the jump ball ability. He out-jumped and beat Pierre Desir for the ball, and Desir is one of our bigger corners and arguably our best corner. He's going to be the true big body receiver that Angelic has never really had, and we've been trying to give it to him for the longest time. And he's fairly young, and Devin Funchess, we're just going to have to see, how he's going to run an offense because we haven't seen him and Luck together in 11-11 scrimmages, and we probably won't for the next couple weeks or so. But I think it's going to be – I want to see him on NFL field still. I still want to see him playing against other teams just because, you can kind of see how the defenses are going to play against you in practice over and over again. So, and also you got to think Devin Funchess is the number 1 target for the Panthers his first couple of years, while this year he's arguably probably going to be our third target in the receiving game. And then on defense, someone that's kind of come out of nowhere a little bit, I saw him make a lot of flash plays at the end of last year, and he's going to get this opportunity now with Jabal Sheard being out for a little bit of time, uncertain right now. I think Al-Qadim Muhammad could really splash this year. If he continues to work on that pass game, I saw him a couple times late in the year be a really good run stopper, so he could, be that Justin Houston or that Jabal Sheard replacement. So that's someone I just think I'm really excited to see. I hope he gets this opportunity with the ones. He hasn't been getting a whole lot in training camp, but we could see it in preseason where he just absolutely dominates against the second team unit and finally gets some starter time. So I guess we'll see on that.
Hey, Sam Sinclair, nice enough to join us here on Colts 365 podcast. Hey, Sam, you think Devin Funchess is going to steal a few touchdowns from Ebron this year, or you think Ebron's still going to have a big year?
Everyone's going to steal touchdowns for Ebron. T.Y. Hilton might steal some. You got to think the Colts are adding basically three new receivers, as I say that in quotes. We're getting Jack Doyle back. He didn't play almost all of – he missed about half of last season. Paris Campbell's a rookie. He's going to be making plays. We didn't have Deion Kane last year in the regular season, so that's another guy, that's going to steal touchdowns from Ebron. And Devin Funchess, we're going to add the new receiver. So it's just if he has half of what he had last year, so that'd be about 6 touchdowns, I'd be a little worried. But I still expect Ebron to be around 9 or 10 touchdowns. He's going to be the middle of the field, inside the 20s type of guy now, where he's not going to be super relied on to do much of anything else inside the red zones.
So you mentioned being at training camp. What position battles are you looking forward to?
Some I've been looking at in camp. I've been looking a lot at cornerback I could say 2 or 3 basically, because they like to play Kenny Moore inside in the slot, and that's technically cornerback 3. But Kenny Moore is best at slot, so he's our second best corner. So the third cornerback spot, which is the outside opposite of Desir, I've been looking a lot, been watching a lot. And I know day one last Thursday, it was mostly Jalen Collins taking the first team snaps. I was pretty excited about. And then recently it's been a lot of Rocky Sin and Quincy Wilson, which that was what I expected coming into training camp. So that's kind of the matchup, the position battle I'm looking at the most in training camp. I'm also looking a lot at who's this lineup of receiver in the first team offense. And a lot of it's been, Hilton and Funches, obviously, but it's been a lot of Chester Rogers, Zach Pascal, and Paris Campbell at the third receiver spot. So that's kind of something I've just been looking at a little bit. I know the offense with Frank Wright and Nick Sirianni are going to want to do a lot of multiple looks, so I'm not putting too much into that. But I'm really looking at the defense because, you're not just going to try out there Rocky Sin one play and then the next play throw out there Quincy Wilson. So that third cornerback spot outside opposite Pierre Desir is probably the one I'm looking at the most. And I also have been looking a little bit at who's playing Sam linebacker. Most of all of the first team snaps when they're in their base defense has been going to Matthew Adams. So that's just that's just kind of 2 positions I've been looking at the most in camp to make sure who's out there at the time.
Sam, can Rocky Sin win this starting job?
Oh, for sure. I'll watch camp, or I've been watching film on him, of course, whenever he got drafted to us. And just watching him in a camp, he's got really, really good ball skills, and I haven't been able to see him much in pass pro, man on man, kind of just dropping back in the zone. But he is a built big corner, and that's no disrespect to Quincy Wilson, but they've been running Quincy Wilson a lot as the dime nickel, the dime cornerback or the nickel cornerback, where he's lined up against tight ends, and it might be what Eberflus likes more. He probably likes to have Quincy Wilson guard the running backs and tight ends, while he has Rocky Sin guarding the bigger receivers on the outside, and that could very much happen this year. And I think Rocky Sin, I don't know if he'll beat out Quincy Wilson for that number 3 spot, but they probably like Quincy Wilson as that fourth corner in the nickel and dime situations, and probably Rocky Sin or even Nate Harrison, who's played fairly well in training camp so far.
Sam, you got a rookie this year that you're looking most forward to seeing. I mean, everybody's kind of Paris Campbell, Rocky Sin. You've heard a little bit about Bobby Okereke, a few different players. You have one that kind of stands out to you that you really going to have your eye on?
Ben Benuga is one of them I've been having my eye on a little bit. I think it's kind of hard for him. I feel like he's going to be behind Sheard, Houston, Al-Qadim Muhammad, and Kamoka Toure. So his snaps are going to be limited. But someone that I've been really, really watching is Khari Willis, because I've watched his tape and I like him a lot. He's not the most athletically gifted safety, and he's not. It almost seems like he's not the Ballard fit. Ballard loves those long, lanky, athletic guys that are bigger for their normal position. But Khari Willis is only 5'11". He didn't blow up the combine with his measurables or anything like that, but he's very, very instinctive. He's a very, very smart football player. He's a really, really good tackler, and I think he's a lot better at coverage than Clayton Geathers and George Odom. And I know Khari Willis had an interception on, I want to say, Billy Brown in the one-on-one drills Saturday. And he's been making a lot of great plays in pass coverage, which is something people were questioning about. It wasn't one of my biggest questions because his instincts make up a lot for his pass pro. But it's more of I need to see him in a game, in a preseason game. I need to see him make some tackles, because sometimes his instincts get the best of him. He'll try to make a play before it happens. I see a couple times in college film where he would whiff on a tackle, or he would just run right by the guy. And it's just a simple fact that he just didn't close out, wrap up, and make the tackle. He tried to do it all before he actually got to the ball. So, but Khari Willis is definitely the guy I've been looking at the most in terms of rookies in this training camp.
Hey, let me run a question by you like this. So Ballard drafts Terrell Basham. He drafts Kamoko Toure. He's got Banagu. Any fear from you that he's kind of missed at that position? Ballard has a great track record at selecting talent fit for our team. Any concern that Banagu is going to kind of fall in that same pattern, or do you think he takes that next step and becomes that dominant pass rusher that we need for the future?
Really, Ballard, I know he's mentioned it in press conferences that it takes a while for pass rushers to develop. So I know he gave up early on Basham. Maybe he just didn't see what he liked, but he hasn't gave up on Kamal Couture yet. It takes time to refine your moves. Like, you can't, especially offensive linemen in college compared to the NFL are just 5 steps a lot better in the NFL. Whereas, I know Banogu, all he really did was like bull rush moves, or he ran by tackles in college. Whereas in the NFL, you're not going to be able to do that because the offensive tackles in the NFL are so much better. So it's really, as a defensive end, it's really all about refining and creating new moves. And we'll see firsthand because, you got Jabal Shear and Robert Mathis and Justin Houston. All 3 of those guys are going to be great mentors for Kamoka Toure and Al-Qadim Muhammad and Ben Bonogo. So it's just, you also got to realize that defense, while they need to create sacks, they're going to have guys rotating in and out all the time. So you're not needing necessarily that one dominant pass rusher or 2 like the Colts used to have with Freeney and Mathis. You just need a bunch of guys, like 9 or 10 guys on the field, or 9 to 10 guys on your roster that can create a pass rush.
All right, Sam, I've got a Twitter question for you. Do you expect the Colts to extend anybody this year? And if so, who?
To extend anybody, the only person I could think that is closest is probably Anthony Costanzo. And I know people are looking at his injury concerns, but he only missed about 6 games in his first, I want to say, 4 or 5 years in his NFL career. His only extended time he's missed in a Colts uniform was last year when he missed about, I want to say 5 or 6 games. So I think Anthony Costanzo is the closest one. I think the organization and Ballard want to see Costanzo play at the ability that he's best at, that he can, to prove, hey, I can play another 3 years. I know other guys like Eric Ebron, we need to see him catch the football and be more consistent. Same with Devin Funches. We got to see him in our scheme be more consistent, catch the football. Jack Doyle, we got to see if he's fully healthy. Same situation as Costanzo. We got to see if he's fully healthy, if, he can withstand a 16-game season, if he's back to where he was a couple years ago. Jabal Shear, I think he's probably the furthest one out now with that injury. I still don't know how long he'll be out, but I think Anthony Costanzo is probably the only one that could probably get extended. And that's probably the guy I'm on the desk screaming to get extended, because without Anthony Costanzo, you have a big hole at left tackle.
Yeah, it's very hard to replace a left tackle. That's just such a commodity. And if you really think about it, teams don't let left tackles leave. If they're a good left tackle, consistent left tackle, I'm not so much worried about Costanzo's injury last year, just because he has been pretty durable, as you mentioned earlier. I'd like to see him sign him. Sam, let everybody know on here where they can find you at and what you're doing, man.
You guys can find me on Twitter at Sam Sinclair 96. I've been just recently had an article. Every day I go to camp, I will be writing a review article on roster guys. So I had one out for Saturday, I want to say. That was the last day I went. Of course, I went Thursday, the first day, and I'll be going Wednesday, the 31st, and August 1st. I'll be going those 2 days. Those are my next 2 days I'm going to go. I'm going to have an article about to come out about what the NFL could do to get an 18-game season when the new CBA comes up next offseason. At the end of next offseason, what the NFL could give up to the NFLPA. That's just something I was thinking about a lot. And it was a really interesting article to think about what all the NFLPA could get from the NFL. shortened preseason games, shortened training camp, a little bit better contracts, and a couple other topics I put in there. So you guys will have to check that out. I think it's coming out tomorrow, the 31st. So other than that, just kind of producing content for the Circle City Sports Podcast. You guys can follow that. It's Circle City Sports Pod on Twitter. And we're on any kind of listening device you guys listening to. Zach, I really appreciate you letting me come on, man.
Absolutely, man. Hey, thank you so much, Sam. Thanks for your time, and we'll look forward to doing it again. Take care, bud.